Hey gang, obviously this is different. It's the Johns. How's it going?
Howdy.
We're trying something out. We're gonna do a little short podcast for you. So we're gonna try and keep this under 10 minutes. I literally have a timer going. We're at 9 minutes and 41 seconds. Let's go, baby. It's a countdown. It's part of the game. So we're gonna try out a new segment. We're gonna call this segment, Hey Kelly, what you mad about?
I'll tell you what I'm mad about today. Texas passing voter restriction law.
Boo. Boo.
Yeah.
2 thumbs down.
Indeed.
2 thumbs down.
100% thumbs down. A total freak backlash against perceived fraud in the last election, which kicks back the discussion on election, right? Protections, quote unquote, but really just there to restrict really poor people and people of color from voting.
Yeah, this is very, very targeted. So, like, for example, in Harris County, which I think is Dallas or Houston. I think it's Dallas. Anyways, it's one of the big counties. They had 24-hour voting, which makes sense, right? Like, especially you're a shift worker, you work at night, you know, you got to drop it off at 3 a.m. when your shift ends, whatever. Like, why does that not make sense? They got rid of that in this bill. However, they did expand that type of voting in more rural counties that tend to vote Republican. And so yeah. This is when you like listen to somebody talking about these different bills, they will say, oh, well, we got to stop fraud for this, or, you know, well, 3 a.m. they're going to drop off 20 million ballots from China. And you're like, okay, so first of all, that happens at like 0.0001% of votes. And oh, by the way, that's like your GOP buddy who tried to vote for his dead mom. So yeah. No, that's no.
Good point.
And then, you know, we want to have voting be accessible for as many people as possible. Like, we all benefit when we're represented. And so, yeah, they're trying to finagle all these different types of ways, or they'll, another classic one, I don't know if it's in this bill, but in other voting suppression bills, they will not allow a college ID as a form of identification, but
they definitely in this one turned up the requirements for ID, especially for mail voting.
Right. And so
whether or not you mail it back or turn it in person, you have to have stronger identification to get it in the first place.
Right. You have to have, so ballot. For example, with this law, you have to, if you're going to do mail in, you have to have a driver's license ID, and not all people do. And the people who don't are disproportionately minority people basically who vote Democrats. So Republicans will go through and write a very targeted bill with those types of things. Or another thing they'll do is they won't accept a college ID, but they'll accept a concealed carry license. And so it's like, what are we doing there?
That's so freaking Texas. It's unbelievable.
It's like, so, you know, this is specifically designed to keep people who the GOP legislature and governor in Texas
consider
don't
problematic voting, right?
Yes.
I mean, they clearly understand. They know politics is a game, right? And they clearly know who their base is and who the demographics are that are troublesome for them. And so they're going to do whatever they can. And they'll use scare taxes to roll up their base and say, well, it's really people we don't want voting anyway. Do you want illegal people to vote? Do you want felons to vote? Do you want, you know, like, it's all about
Black
legality.
People to vote.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they don't come out and say it, except maybe behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't know. I don't have a mic on those people. I don't want to, you know, put words in people's mouths necessarily.
I'll say it.
But, you know, again, it comes down to, you know, what kind of society you want to live in, and it's completely anti-democratic. It's much more of like a republic idea of voting, if that, but it's certainly based on social and cultural hierarchies and who should be allowed and who shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Yeah, and it's I mean, I think this kind of goes back to a first principles kind of argument. I feel like through things like racism and oppression and discrimination and all those types of things, we've lost out on so much contribution to the human story. And I mean, imagine how much better science would be. And there's a cool sci-fi show on that I was listening to a review on it, and it's an alternative history. And the bit is the Soviets land on the moon first and they bring a woman. And what that ends up doing is it has all these different ramifications in the U.S. The Equal Rights Amendment gets passed. We end up setting up a fucking moon colony. And so, like, I think that when we say, oh, get back in the kitchen, it's like, get back in the kitchen and don't go cure diseases. And so to like make an argument for why it's really important that these people are able to contribute to society, or I guess, you know, very charitably, and something I morally disagree with, a Republican might say, well, we want the smartest and best people only to vote. And I say, we don't know. Every person has a unique contribution. Right, and so in order to have the best possible mosaic, we have to include everybody. And like their IQ might not be as good as yours, but you know what? They do know something way fucking better than you do. And we should have that in our polity and not only in our culture and our society. That makes our government better. So that's why this is important, other than the really important moral argument, which would be sufficient in and of itself for allowing everybody to vote. But on top of that, it's the smart, practical thing to do as well. So let's fucking do this.
Yeah. I know, man. I know. It's like, and you think about it, and what's I think kind of terrifying, right? Is this the first one of many ones that are going to come down?
Florida's already looking at. Oh no, wait, sorry, that was the abortion thing. We'll get to that later, folks.
Yeah, that's another one. We're going to bring out a guest for that. But what I was going to say is that it really is like you're going to see this in multiple Republican-run states. You're going to see stuff like this start to trickle in. It's already in the works in a lot of legislators.
Yeah,
and so what you're going to see is a lot of really restricted voting areas around, and it's going to go state by state. And, it's too bad. And you might have to see some kind of federal step in, right? Some kind of federal voting rights like they've talked about in the last 6 months from the federal level to come in and say, look, you guys can't do this. Yeah. You can't just restrict these on these grounds because we know when we're looking at the data who those target.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it shouldn't be a Democratic or Republican thing. It really shouldn't. And it's too bad that it is, and the interesting thing, and one thing I will pull up, and you see this consistently across voting lines as well as usually party lines, is that a lot of people want secure elections. And so in that, a lot of people say there should be some kind of identification that's associated with it, right? But when you start narrowing it into just one category is the only way that you can do it, then you just restrict voters. And most people aren't okay with that. Most people are like, yeah, we want secure elections. We want to have some different ways. It doesn't just have to be your driver's license, or in Texas, a concealed carry, which I'm pretty sure they just give those out at liquor stores, right? Don't you just get one? You buy a bottle of Jack Daniels, like, bam.
Yeah. This is the 21st century. Yeah, they just give them out.
Right. Yeah.
It comes with the bottle. It's like in the label. It's one of those things you pull off. Yeah, I mean, this is I think if the federal government does not step in literally the next year or two, we are going to enter into a period of new Jim Crow. And it's very possible. It's very possible. We're basically already there, and it's just how much is the bleeding going to happen before we're able to stop it. And so this is a major fight, and now is the time to stop it, because when autocracy gets entrenched, it's much harder to get it out. So, folks, call your congresspeople. Be sure to donate. You don't need to donate only to politicians. You can donate to other civic organizations. Make sure that you're also like just talking to people in your life about why it's important to vote, and say, hey, are you registered?
And why it's important to have an open civic society.
Yes.
In general. Not just voting, but just why it's important to have those conversations.
Societies have to solve problems. Democracies solve problems by having a reasoned discussion. Autocracies solve problems by revolutions. Guess which one is better? So, folks, please, let's make sure that none of these bills get passed. If they do, they get repealed. There have to be election consequences for this kind of nonsense. Please do whatever you can. Godspeed, y'all.